Hey guys, welcome back to another professionalism and networking episode today. We're actually doing something a little bit different in that we are going to be talking about a specific skill this time around. I realized as I was going through these different episodes that there's really a little bit more that I wanted to dig into, especially after I had done the skill development episode, which was episode 7. So I thought let's dig a little bit deeper and pick out specific skills that I want to talk about and go from there. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking specifically about organization and time management. To start off with, I thought it would be a good idea to just list the several things that we're going to be going over. So, in order to develop really good organization, time management skills, the things that I've done is specifically use bullet journaling, create to-do lists, calendars, and then habit trackers as well. So these four things are kind of what we're going to be going over as the specific tools that I would say that people have to learn how to use to try and help them become more organized and develop skills in time management. Now, you don't have to do all of these things, but I would definitely recommend, especially if you're still trying to figure out how to be more organized, I would definitely recommend trying out one or two of these things. So, and then from there, what you would do is pretty much pick out which ones work best for you. And for me, it's not that I use all of these consistently on the day-to-day basis, but I use specific things very consistently, and then depending on what I need, sometimes I'll shift over to different methods as I need them. Before we get into these specific tools, I thought I would mention what the really important thing about schedules are before we go over them, and because this is such an important tool for staying organized and managing your time is to have a schedule. And so one thing that that everyone needs to be aware of is that when you create a schedule, it's not meant to be something like a prison for you, right? It's meant to be something that allows you to have the best possible day. And so going into that, what you have to think is, what are the things that I need to do to have a pretty good day, right? And that means a little bit of the things that you have to do in a particular day. So that could be going to work, that could be doing specific tasks relating to your field of interest, right? And hopefully those things aren't like bogging you down, right? But even if they are, right, that's your piece of responsibility for that day. So that's something that you definitely have to do. But beyond that, what are the things that you can do that make you have the best possible day, the day that you actually want? And so that on top of the responsibilities, those are kind of the two things that you have to keep in mind. So you can't just have a day where you're just doing whatever you want, but you don't do anything that you actually need to get done. But it's also good to mix in things that you really want to do amongst the things that you say have to do. So yeah, that's something that I think is very important to consider when you're developing your schedules for yourself and really trying to manage your time, because it's not just about getting everything that you could possibly get done in the shortest period of time and to be the most efficient person ever. I've tried that and it can be very miserable. So definitely try to mix the things that you really want to do as well as the things that you have to do as responsibilities. And sometimes those things will definitely overlap depending on what you're trying to do and things like that. Hopefully those things do overlap in a lot of areas, but sometimes you just need to make sure to have both of those things balanced fairly evenly just so you stay sane in all of this and you're not really resenting the schedules that you create for yourself. Okay, so now that we've gotten that little bit of an intro out of the way, I thought that first things first, let's talk about what a to-do list is, how you can use it, and make sure it's done effectively. So there are different ways that you can use a to-do list, and I think probably the least effective way is to just have a list of everything that you need to do from now till whenever, say like for the next month, and then you just keep adding things to that list. I think that's very ineffective, and the reason for that is this list is just it just becomes this giant monstrosity that you have of potentially dozens to hundreds of tasks, right? And maybe hundreds is a lot bigger than what most people would have, but that's how big it can get depending on how many different things that you actually want to get done in a given time frame. So what I would recommend is putting out 5, maybe 6 tasks per day that need to get done, but at the maximum, I would say at a month's notice versus as well as a week notice, you should know generally what the things that really need to get done are. So that means over the course of a month, when the month starts, what are the general things that you want to get done? And I would say don't be too specific and don't make your list 100 different things. But if you have a general idea of certain deadlines and things like that, you might want to have those written down on your month page. But then when you go into your specific weeks, it's also a good idea to write down all the different things that you need to do in a particular week and make sure you understand exactly how much time these things are going to take. So from there, you have your daily lists, right? And I would say that this is kind of one of the most important things is to have 5 to 6 different things per day where that you understand that each of these things, so long as you get them done, that's what's important, and this is like the bulk of what you should be doing in a day. Some of these tasks might take 5 to 6 hours, or not 5 to 6, overall it should take 5 to 6 hours, maybe up to 8 hours, right? And I would say that makes a lot of sense for a good work day, right? And so this means that, say you have 5 tasks, each one takes about an hour, that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes it'll go more than that, sometimes it'll be a little bit less, but generally speaking, you should have 5 to 6 different things that'll take a good chunk of your day. That way, at the end of it, when you cross off all these things, you feel good because you feel like you've actually accomplished something, as opposed to just having a couple tasks that take you about an hour to complete. I would say if you're really struggling, maybe start with that, but then build your way up over time. The importance of this is that you have some type of record, right? That's kind of showing you these are the things that I've done in this day, and at the end of it, you're like, okay, I accomplished something. Because at the end of the day, when you realize that you've accomplished something, you're more likely to do the same thing over again the next day. At least that's what I've found for myself that works really well. Another thing that I would say beyond specific tasks that need to get done, I would also recommend having lists for different things. And what I mean by this is like not just have tasks that these are the things that need to get done in this specific time frame, but have larger lists that really do span longer periods of time. And for me, I have a list of books that I want to read by the end of this year. I have a list of artwork that I want to do by the end of a certain time frame, or things that I want to be working on in the future. Same thing with music and things like that, as well as engineering projects. So having all of those different things in different lists kind of makes sense because you could pick and choose which ones you want to focus on at different times. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is not really a tool, but more of a general, I guess this is kind of like a housekeeping tip. And the way that I would say this is just keep your space clean. And what I mean by that is if you have a lot of clutter in your area, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get a lot of work done. So what I like to do is at least on a daily basis when I leave the room, make sure things are fairly tidy in my workspace, right? And so things are still semi-organized, right? And so things don't really get too out of hand, such that like after a week or two, things are just so messy that I don't even want to work in that space. So what I would recommend is do like one deep clean of your area, right? And then from there, every day when things start to clutter up, try to just keep things in their places where they're supposed to go as you move from place to place in the room that you're in or from room to room. That way things from other rooms don't really get cluttered up in the space that you're working, as well as things that should go in a particular spot in your area or in that specific spot. That way things are just not all over the place. This just helps keep your house in order in a sense, such that like you're not really thinking about, oh, I need to move this over to this corner of the room so that I could use this specific space and then move it back and forth, and that just becomes a huge headache over time. So definitely trying to keep your area clean is something that I would highly recommend. And if you're doing things like small things just to keep your area clean in the day-to-day, it's really easy to do that. And then by the time you look at it, like maybe on the weekends, you'll probably have very few things that you might want to move around and put back into their specific spaces. Next, I want to talk about something called habit trackers. So habit trackers are actually very useful, and I used them a lot last year, especially probably the first half of last year. And then I had stopped using them for a while, and they had definitely had some negative impacts when I stopped using them, but I started up using them again I would say the past month now, maybe 2 months now. I started using habit trackers once again, and they definitely helped a lot in the sense that they're kind of similar to a to-do list, except you are tracking specific things throughout every day, pretty much. And so what I did at the beginning of the month is I add or remove specific habits that I want to continue to look at, and every single day I check off the box to see whether or not I had done it. And then at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you can see how much progress, how much time you're actually allocating to different skills or different habits, right? And from there, you're able to decide whether or not something's actually important to you, or maybe allocate more time to those things, making sure that you actually consistently are looking at the different habits that you're trying to develop. One of the most important things that I use in like the daily basis, in a daily basis, in a weekly basis, and pretty much every single day, every hour of the day, I'm using my bullet journal. And this is actually very, very helpful for me because I use it for a whole slew of different things. And I'll actually link a couple of resources for other bullet journal YouTube videos that I've used personally to try and get myself started on this. But bullet journaling is basically where you have a journal that contains every type of note that you would want. It's not a regular journal, but you basically keep all your tasks listed in there, everything that you're doing. It's basically your notebook for general things. And what I use it for personally is I use it for all my to-do lists. I use it to track my habits, as well as I use it for my scripts. I put music in there. I put different lists in there, things like that. So pretty much I use it for everything that I've talked about thus far. Every other tool, every other organizational tip that I've come up with, except for keeping your space clean as of now, that's what I use. Where I put it is in my bullet journal. And so I always have it in one space. And I think that that's super useful. So I have all my YouTube scripts in one section in my bullet journal. I have all my habit tracking stuff there. I have different different pieces of music that I've transcribed, all of my tasks, they're all in there at different specific spots, and I can always refer back to different things, different notes, everything that I think is important anytime I need it. So I would highly recommend that if you're trying to keep yourself organized, definitely the best thing to do is to get a bullet journal, because it definitely changed how organized I was in a lot of ways. And definitely when I don't use it now, it's definitely noticeable in the sense that I don't get as much done. And it's definitely been a huge help in getting me to be more productive, more mindful of my time, and really just getting more done on a day-to-day basis. The last tip, the last tool that I wanted to talk about is Google Calendar. So hopefully you guys know what Google Calendar is as of now, but if you don't, Google Calendar is basically an online calendar that you can use to track all of your different appointments. I mainly use it for pretty much anything that I'm doing in a given day. It's not always exact, right? Sometimes things take longer than expected, sometimes things take less time than expected, but I enjoy using this for at least for a week view. That way I understand exactly what I have to get done, how much time things are going to take, especially because it helps you visualize how your time is actually being spent a little bit better than it would have if you just use, say, a to-do list. So definitely a great tool for visualizing how your day is going to be spent. I put down all my courses on here. I put down my work schedules on here. I put down any meetings that I have, club activities, things like that. Definitely a huge benefit to make sure that you have all of your different appointments, all of your different weekly things listed there, and you can always refer back to that tool so that you know exactly where you're supposed to be at a given time. So definitely recommend using Google Calendar as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this video. Those are several different tips and tools that I think are super important that you can use to develop your time management and your organization over the course of however long you're trying to develop those skills. And I would say that it's pretty much an ongoing process, right? You start using these and you really don't stop. So I would highly recommend checking out all these different tools, these different ways of keeping yourself organized. I think it's definitely beneficial to at least try out and see how it goes. And yeah, once you develop these habits, it's really a it's really a game changer at that point. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this video. Tell me in the comments below if you have any more tips, any more skills, any more um, tools relating to time management that you think would be very beneficial. If you want me to talk about anything else, similarly, if there are any particular skills that you want me to talk about, please let me know. And also let me know if there are any other general topics that you want me to talk about in this professionalism and networking series.